Welcome into Shaping Reality for February 2025. Can you even believe we're here? I'm Kimberly, and I'm joined with author and educator Penny Kelly. Hi, Penny. How are you tonight?
Hi, I'm good. I'm good. And how are you? It's
I'm
been,
getting better. I was exposed to the toxic fog in Florida, where it's an open air gas chamber right now. Took me down for about 6 weeks, but I'm coming out of it now. How are things in your community with the chemtrailing? And that's kind of where I'd like to start tonight. And then we can move into how we need to take more action in our communities and go from there.
we haven't gotten nearly as much as people in California, Texas, Arizona, Florida, all along the coast. I think they've been trying to clear the coast for a long time, but we had wonderful weather for about a week, and then the planes came back spraying their crap. And sure enough, within about 48 to 72 hours, we had an ice storm, blizzard, still having it, a high wind, snow. I had an appointment today that I had to cancel. It's like, wow, I'm not going out in that. That's just, if I don't have to, I'm not going.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I feel bad. I know so many people that are struggling with those chemtrails, and they're taking people down.
Yeah. So here's my question to you. And I could literally pepper you with questions for 4 hours about this.
Uh,
But this is what I don't understand. I mean, this chemtrailing has just ramped up exponentially in the last several months. It went from bad to like, oh my gosh, there's days I can't even comfortably go out of my house. The fog, the toxic fog in Florida is so thick. Who's doing it and why are they still doing it? If this is military planes, is this our military? Who's approving this? Why aren't our leaders, at the federal level addressing it? What's going on? It doesn't do any good to have a Make America Healthy, campaign if they're poisoning us from the skies.
I know that's true. I have heard that it's some military, but I do know that it's also planes that are owned independently. Pilots, the pilot who just got confronted, he wasn't part of the military. He
Right.
had his own plane or he flew for a company that leased out planes or rented out planes or whatever they do. And he let on that his boss was the one who signed the contract, not him. Who's don't come after me. I didn't do it. It's like, well, you're the damn
You're
fool.
flying the plane, buddy. Yeah.
I know, and so I think that there's been it's this the money thing over and over and over again. It comes down to money, and I don't know where people think they're going to get having more money than they need. It's just we don't need as much money as we're trying to get. And I know that people are going to say, I don't have enough to pay the bills. That's a different case. That's different. But if you own an airplane company and you are leasing out planes, you have a lot of options. A lot of cargo could be carried, a lot of ways to make money besides doing something like that. So we've lost our way. We've lost our morals. We've lost our caring for humanity. It's very sad, and it's really dangerous. And your point about making America healthy again, I'm like, we're all going to be doing nothing but detox, trying to get this stuff out of our system until that stops. So
And I understand that it's very detrimental to the human health. My doctor, who I talked to when I was in the thick of it,
yeah,
and I said to her, I think it has to do with the toxic fog, the fog that's out there. And she didn't push back. And she said, yes. And I think the timing is very interesting. And she said, there's an absolute epidemic in our community of respiratory and gut issues. And so this is beyond aluminum, barium, and strontium and other weather modifying procedures. they tested for bacteria in
Right.
this fire, and it came up positive for a bacteria I can't even mention anymore. So my question is that it's gone beyond just modifying the weather. They're now spraying us with bacteria. So who's doing that?
I think that's all part of the chemical mix. And I don't think the pilots actually know what it is they're spraying. They're just spraying. And they make up stories. Some of those stories are like for better communication within an area. That's crap. That's,
Yeah.
it is. So, yeah, they have been spraying some serious bacteria and viruses, and some of that bacteria is in the mycoplasma form, which means it doesn't have a cell wall, so it
Yeah.
can't be detected when it's in the body. And that, and then there's parasites. A lot of parasites have been sprayed. Some parts of DNA, the same stuff that was in the shot in the arm
That's
thing.
been aerosolized.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
my question is that in order to accomplish that getting sprayed, and I'll just leave it to the US because that's what I know, and I don't know if they're doing it. I know they're chemtrailing the whole planet because I see it on social media. I don't know if they're putting that bacteria and parasites in it, but to put that type of toxins into these planes all around the country, that requires a very sophisticated distribution system.
Yeah.
So if it's our government doing it, who in our government is doing it? Or is it the deep state doing it? And if so, how are they? It's like, how is this even happening?
The deep state had all sorts of supply lines. That's really what Ukraine has been about. All of those biolabs in Ukraine, that's what that war is over. Putin didn't want weapons on his border, but that was the official story.
Yeah.
And that's also true. And he didn't want NATO coming any closer. But when you listen to him talk and somebody is interpreting, because he's speaking at something happening in Russia, he will say, we had to get rid of those biolabs. We had to stop the child trafficking. We can't have that. That's not human. That isn't human behavior. And so he's not. I think he's made quite a push recently, and he did some more bombing of Kiev. And the deep state, their attitude is pretty much, we're losing. We can see that we're losing, but by God, we're going to take a piece of you down with us. And they don't want Trump and team or any of the people who are in what we'll call the conservative movement to have the numbers of people to work with that they had to work with. They were trying to get rid of people, of course. And so they're still trying to get rid of people, not so much because they think they can put across reduce the population to 500,000. I don't think they think that anymore. But they do have the attitude, we're going to cut your population so that you don't have hardly enough people to call it a country anymore.
And then the people that are there are sick.
Yeah, they are.
That's how you weaken a population.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we've got the naughty boys desperately trying to take as many of us out with them. All right. Here's where I go to, and I think this kind of dovetails right into an issue for you. And those of us that are watching from my channel know I threw a big fat fit on the internet last week about chemtrailing and about the fact that a mother had to go in and confront a pilot in California instead of the men in the community. And then I launched into the men because they weren't, in my opinion, assuming the role of protector which I feel like is their role in a society. So if you talk about a society, I see four things right now. And I know, Penny, you probably see it different, but I see protectors, I see nurturers, I
Yep.
see innovators. Those are the people who move the society forward. And I see the wise ones. So if you
Okay.
have a society with those four pillars, it works. But if you lose one of the pillars, everything falls apart. And in my mind, we've lost the protectors. People are no longer saying, and in particular for me, this is my opinion, you don't have to agree, the men are no longer taking responsibility for their communities, for protecting their families, for protecting their neighbors, for protecting their greater community. Everybody thinks it's the government's job.
I know this is true. I think, well, what else? Say more. You got more?
Well, I was just going to say that it kind of dovetails into what you were talking about people not taking action or not
Yeah.
being mature and realizing this is what needs to be done and we need to do it. We don't need to tag Elon Musk or, somebody in a post on X. We need to actually take responsibility for our families and our communities.
That is so true. And I think we have a number of problems. Number one, the testosterone in men has been lowered dramatically. And that's just a factor coming out of how many? 72 vaccines right at birth. And then, boosters after that over the course of life for this, that, whatever. So there's no testosterone. You have to have testosterone in order to be willing to go and fight. So that's one big, big factor. Hormones control a lot of emotion and feeling and behavior. The second thing is that we've had how many years of feminization of the men and masculization of the women. And
the whole toxic masculinity thing was such bullshit.
I know. Oh my gosh. Don't get me going. Okay. That whole thing started when I was an educational consultant back in the 90s. I spent 18 years in the world of education trying to get schools and corporations to do something different because they were making patsies out of the boys and bullies out of the girls. And that, I hated that. I agree with you. Men are there for protection, for muscle, for their unique way of looking at the world, their inventiveness. I love men. I think they're wonderful.
Love real men. Oh my God. Yeah. Well, if you say that this started years ago, then this has been, well, of course we know it's been the plan all along. But
right.
When we look back and realize that they started attacking the testosterone decades ago, and then came on the whole toxic masculinity is bad. No, men, masculinity is good.
Right. That's right. What capped that off was that whole LGBTQ, whatever it is, the thing that they're pushing everywhere around the entire planet. Mm-hmm. Everybody was suffering from that. And I think maybe the only nation on the planet that was, giving the government the finger was France. So they stand up in France. Oh my gosh. But every place else, everybody kind of sits on the couch and watches like it's entertainment until it comes to their door. Yeah. And then it's too late. So here we are. We've cut off the, I don't care that whole LGBT thing. I don't care what you're doing in the bedroom. I don't care. Period. And I don't want to hear about it. I have other things that are much more interesting than that to think about. And I don't, and I have friends that are either gay or lesbian or whatever. we don't really talk about their
We don't
sex
care.
life.
We don't care. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So it's one of those things where we have all of that testosterone has dropped, and it's not well known that 50% of the oxygen level in our atmosphere has disappeared in the last 50 years. And oxygen is a wonderful detoxifier. It is the best, hands down, antibiotic, the best antifungal, antiviral. It's absolutely fabulous. It's an anti-cancer agent. And where did that oxygen go? And now they're trying to take away the carbon dioxide. What are they replacing the oxygen and the carbon dioxide with? That lets me know that there are some people from other planets here that are maybe pulling strings or have been pulling strings behind the whole Biden and cronies kind of agenda.
So are you saying that they're changing the mix because that suits their bodies better?
Exactly. And that is something that really I don't talk about much. That just upsets people more. It does me too. So
I want to know. I want to know that, because if it's only through knowledge that we're going to be able to get out of this thing.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Why do you think 90% of the ET people here are up in the mountains or under the ocean? Because they are busy changing. Well, let's just let that go. They're trying to fix the atmosphere to suit themselves a little bit more. And that's just the bottom line. So here we are. And we've had some we got the bad end of the deal for so many things in the last 50 to 70 years. And I was just reflecting on, how things used to be before the Department of Education came into being back in the 1980s. And
which wasn't about education.
No, it wasn't back then. It was about having one kind of educational agenda. Common Core was it, and ruining everybody's ability to have critical thinking, and set up the strategies for the sex agenda, for the trans agenda. And that's all that was about. It really bothered me. It still does. And when you see that going on across a whole country, because I worked the whole country, that back and forth, travel, schools, corporations, colleges, you name it. It was pretty frustrating. And what made it even more difficult was that I had integrated Kundalini by the time I was working as an educational consultant, and I knew what the human was capable of. Oh, the immense power, wisdom, the potential that was built into the human body, and to see that stomped down again and again, that just, to me, that was treason. That's why I left. And that is just now finally being confronted, kind of. But everything in our world was really set up to make it so miserable that people did leave, either on purpose through suicide, or because they didn't have any options when they got sick, and they didn't know what to do when they did get sick. And, just all kinds of little agendas like that, all designed to look so natural so that nobody would question it. And the chemtrails were, and still are, a major piece of that, because you can't stop breathing, period. You have to
breathe if you're on this planet. Penny, that I had been thinking about something for the last 2 years, I think, and that is that noticing the systems that we have to work in. Whether you're online trying to do something, or you go to a government facility and you're trying to do something. And I notice what I perceive to be is an intentional pattern of frustrating steps that are needless, but they just make the process so much more miserable.
I know. I
I
know.
started wondering if this has all been orchestrated in order to make this reality so frustrating
Mhm.
and discouraging that people are just constantly it's just so hard to live here.
Let me ask you a question. When you look at what Trump and team are doing, and the way he's just cutting through the red tape and the obstacles and all those frustrating things that you're talking about, when you watch that happen, is that a shock for you to see how it can be done? Do you think people are struggling because so many people today have never seen that kind of resolution and action and cutting out the BS? Just go get it done. Just
Yeah.
go do it.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think
I
that
think we've
people
been
are in shock.
anesthetized. We've been anesthetized for decades into your actions don't ever affect change.
That's true.
It's like we've had this government that keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and we send these representatives to Washington, and nothing changes.
I know.
Nothing gets done. Our voices are never heard. And the one thing that I can say, watching what the new administration is doing, is I am continually delighted at, oh, wow, that was a bad situation that just got turned on its ear and everything's, you know, it's amazing to me how they can take something that you think, oh no, this is not good. And then boom, all of a sudden it's been flipped on its head and some clarity and logic and common sense
Right.
saves the day.
I know. I know. I heard somebody say last week, it was somebody I was listening to something going on in either the Senate or the House of Representatives, some kind of meeting, and somebody was accusing Musk of he just wants to get all that information so he can take that money and call it his own. And I'm like, the man has $60 billion. You really think he needs your 5 cents or your $10 or your $500? It's, wake up. He's not interested in taking your money or yeah, it was stupid. It's a
And,
stupid.
and then the second question is, who do you think you had your information before he showed up?
Yeah,
Hello?
I know. Oh my God. Like they weren't spying and had every bit of information from their secret surveillance for the last 20 years, ever since Facebook came out and people started dumping their whole life onto Facebook.
That was
Everything.
you got to give it to the naughty boys. That was a brilliant plan.
It was. And not very many people know that it was started by the CIA and then turned over to Zuckerberg to run so that it would look normal. I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay. It was brilliant. It was.
So how do we take a society, a collective, a reality system where people have been trained to not take action, to not feel like they can make change, that they're not responsible for change, that someone else is supposed to come in and fix it for them? How do we get people up off the couch to at least begin to show up, like that woman who showed up at the pilot, the office of the pilot that was chemtrailing her community? How do we turn that into the men of the community that have banded together and decided we're no longer going to accept this? And every pilot that's spraying in our community is going to find out very quickly that it's not in their benefit to do it anymore.
I
So how
know.
do we get people? I think people are afraid that they'll fail or they don't have the right. Some guy said, well, I'll get in trouble. And my response was, well, you're not the kind of man we need.
Well,
We don't.
not only that, he's in trouble and doesn't even know it.
Yeah,
He's
it's
in
like
trouble
filling
by
your
dint
pants.
of the, yeah. He's
Yeah.
already into the eyeballs if he's getting sprayed with that crap. So there's a disconnect there in terms of what is the trouble. You know, that's
See, and there's the point right there, is that people, they're literally being poisoned like bugs and are
yeah.
still not stepping into their power.
I'll tell you something. I had a conversation many years ago. I was at an Acres USA conference, and I was talking to Charlie, the guy, I forget his last name, but he was a guy who started the Acres newspaper. You know, it was for organic farmers, natural farmers. And I said to him, Charlie, what are we going to do? People do not get what's happening. And this was probably 20 years ago. And he said, they either get it or they're going to die. And I said, but Charlie, and then maybe I'm going to say like 10 years ago, I had a conversation with John Peterson, and I'm rattling on about, you know, we need to do this and we need to do that. And he said, we don't have time for that. We don't have the money for that. We don't have the army to carry that out. We don't have this. He had just this whole list of things. And I said, but John, we're going to lose the people. And he said, well, yeah. And I was like, what do you mean? Yeah. And he said, you can't save everybody. You have to put the information out there and they have to save themselves. And if they don't, then they're not there to deal with. And I was horrified. I think I mentioned that once before in one other conversation we had, but it was like, oh, and I've had one or two other conversations with men who are still real men and who have been in the trenches in some pretty serious situations. They know what it's like to be fighting for your life. And they're not anxious to go back into that, but by God, they're not backing down either. So their attitude is, if that comes to my door, somebody's going to pay.
Yeah.
So I think we have to, and it has been a big thing even on my shoulders just this last year, looking at this next 2 years, thinking, oh, wow, this is really going to tell the tale as to whether or not people are going to get up and take some action. And so for my thinking, I have tried to encourage people to get up and learn how to grow food, learn how to sew, learn how to fix an engine, learn how, you know, I think we talked about that once before, learn anything, anything new that could be used in a transition stage, moving to a new world. What is that new world going to be like? How is that going to be energized? Meaning, is it going to be energized by oil, gas, kerosene, wood, plasma, some other kind of energy? It isn't going to be solar or wind. And those are nice. They'll help in a transition, but they aren't long-term.
But don't we have 0 point energy in the background, Penny? It's like when I hear Trump say drill, baby, drill, I'm like, are we pretending like we don't have the technology?
Yeah, they are. They are. And we don't have the infrastructure. They want to introduce that. They will introduce that. But look at how long. For instance, this house that I live in used to be an old barn. In the 1940s, it was full of hay and cows and chickens and stuff like that. And in the 1940s, after the war, was when electricity finally came to this part of the country. And the electric team, their housing was in this barn, sleeping in the hay, because there were no hotels and motels. And they were, people opened up their barns, they opened up their houses. And so the whole crew would come and sleep in that house or in that barn. Usually the guy who was the head of the crew got to sleep in the house. The crew got to sleep in the barn. And that was how they afforded to put infrastructure in place. That's 1940s. And when we bought this farm, the electricity was knob and tube. That is a form of wiring that is so outdated. We had to rewire everything. And you know, and only like one plug per room. That was it. So we have, if we don't drill, baby, drill, because that is a stopgap measure, then we're not going to have any way to build the infrastructure that we need to get to, if you want to call it 0 point energy. I don't particularly like that term. It's really plasma energy, and knowing how to use plasma and draw plasma right from the 0 point. It's really not 0 point. Because space is loaded with energy. But we need some of the, like, okay, what we need the engineering. What kind of gadget is needed in your house, and how many millions of those would have to be manufactured in order for everybody to have it? And then where's the infrastructure? How does it get from place to place to place? Well, if you have a plasma generator, you don't need the big infrastructure, but you need the supply lines to build the gadget. Right. So it's a temporary thing. And people, solar, how far are you going to get to the sun or to Jupiter, with wind energy? You're not going to get very far. That is just, the Green New Deal was basically a screw job. And everybody in engineering knew that. Everybody in science knows that. The people, oh my gosh, millions, billions of dollars wasted when we could have been looking to engineer the generators that would generate energy for whole house. The things I've talked about in the past. You take your electric system with you when you build a house or buy another house. You take that with you. So
I want to just ask you a question at this juncture. So if we spent, the Green New Deal baloney, the whole thing was a big scam, wasted millions and billions of dollars. Was that all orchestrated so that we would go off course, so our civilization would fail, so that whoever the ETs are that would like this planet would be able to succeed in populating this planet and getting rid of us?
Yeah, exactly. You can't go anywhere with wind and solar, a little bit further with solar, but not very far. And so if you think about Mariner 1 or Mariner 2, I forget which one of them, went all the way to the edge of the universe, they said, or the edge of the galaxy or something like that. And I think it had some kind of little solar generator, but I don't think I would want to be riding on that Mariner across space. It just wouldn't be comfortable. And so you would need something that generated a whole lot more energy. And now you're getting into some really kludgy kind of engineering. So once you know what's possible with what people often think of as 0 point or plasma energy, anything else just becomes a waste of time. Yeah. So we're getting there, and we have this whole world that needs this whole new reality. The reality we have is just such a wreck right now. So I think, instead of worrying about what you can't do anything about, whoever, wherever you are in the country, everybody is worrying right along with you. So don't feel bad. But I think the better placement of energy is, okay, what can we build? How can what could be discovered? I'm waiting for somebody to discover a new kind of fabric. I try not to detest the clothing here, but it is so limiting, and it hangs up on my shoulder or my boobs or my waist, or it's too tight, or I go to move and it's restricting. Or if you're on a farm, you can't have stuff that's too loose. It gets caught in stuff, and that's dangerous. My son lost a finger because of that kind of thing. Your stuff gets lost or gets caught in chains or equipment. It's goodbye, whatever that piece of you was. So there's different things that you need to be aware of. So I'm waiting for somebody to invent either a new kind of weaving or a new kind of thread that can be woven into clothing that really flatters and fits. There are, how about just new kinds of water generators that generate water right from thin air? They have those. They have the science for that. What are we doing with lead pipes and, pipes that have lead in them? Poor Michigan is stuck with those old pipes. I think New York is worse. But yeah, they try to keep all that hidden or keep that out of the public concern.
Well, if you look at, our infrastructure, our crumbling infrastructure, which is a real source of frustration for me, when you look at all the waste that DOGE has uncovered, and when you realize that our cities could be clean, they could be well managed, they could be cutting edge, we could have the best transportation. I mean, we are living on the crumbs, the leftover dirty crumbs from this whole system that has just been sucking us dry.
You're right. You're right. And it's really sad, and it's really, I think, is coming to an end. I hope that, that there's some young people, meaning in their 20s, that are in college that are saying, maybe I'll study a little more science, or maybe I'll study health a little bit better. I listened to some of the people that were complaining at the Robert F. Kennedy Jr. hearing before his confirmation. And I was appalled at the ignorance of those people and the things they were saying regarding healthy people. I wanted to get up and,
I think they were paid to say that.
But aren't they embarrassed to be? I don't know.
Well, when I see, and I'll call out people like Bernie Sanders and Pocahontas, Elizabeth Warren.
I listen to them. Oh,
okay. Wow. And if you support those people, I support you, and you're supporting them. Whatever, everybody gets to have an opinion. But the things they're spewing are just like, aren't you? No one's buying it anymore. Give it up. We don't care how much they're paying you. We're not listening. We know you're lying. There's almost a disconnect, like it's almost like walking in and your husband's in bed with another woman and he's saying, "What woman? I don't know what you're talking about." What?
Sorry. Yeah, it is. That is psychopathic. That is That is a.
Do you think it is, or do you think it's just like they're so desperate, they're just spewing what they've been paid to spew, and they don't realize that they've lost the plot, the glue? No one's listening.
Yeah, that's true. I just, my thought as I was listening, I forget who it was. I listened to so much of that. They were talking about vaccines and. Are you a vaccine?
It's like, are you kidding me?
I know. It's like, have you read anything? Have you paid attention? Do you know anyone who's got a kid that has been injured by vaccines? It is so heartbreaking.
It is.
Oh my gosh. And then you have stuff, people like Edith Chan, I think down in Texas, who's, working with kids that are absolutely brilliant. And she has a little school down there, and it's like, oh, thank God. There are people that are teaching clairvoyance and telepathy, and kids are blindfolded, and there's a school in Utah doing the same thing, teaching kids to read without having the book right in front of them. It's like, okay, we can mourn about the old system and the great tragedy and the fact that it has brainwashed a lot of people and it's not working anymore. And they are going to wake up and they are going to be hurt or angry, or sick at heart, sick to, it's like, oh my God, what happened? How did that happen? It happened. But the thing is, how do we move on?
Yeah.
What does that new world look like? What does that new human behave like, talk like, sound like, think like? That's all coming. And there are places where there aren't as many chemtrails. There are places where they're starting to pull fluoride out of the water. They're not putting it in anymore. There are places where there's a very active, like gardening community, people growing their own food, little communities springing up here and there. So, the thing that I think we should be focused on is, okay, what's my role in that new world? What is mine to do? And how do I get started?
Yeah. It's almost, for me at times, and if it happens to me, I know it happens to other people because I'm pretty kind of typical in my thought processes. Talking about the new human and the new systems, it's almost like trying to imagine a color I've never seen. It's
Oh,
like, how do I even do that? Because this is what I know. And thankfully, over the course of the years, I've kind of opened up to it. But to even imagine a year from now, and I was saying to Candy, who you met earlier, a year from now, we're going to be looking at each other and saying, everything is so different.
oh yeah.
It's
Oh,
so different. But I don't know, sitting here today with what I understand, I don't know what's going to be different.
I don't think we should know everything, okay? For two reasons. And I don't say that to discourage people. I say that because it can't be known until you're ready to see it, until you're ready to do it. And so a woman wrote to me a couple days ago, and she said, in essence, I see what's happening in Washington, D.C. I wanted all of those changes so badly, and now I'm scared to death. I'm afraid, I like my life. I like, she finally retired, I guess, and has some grandchildren, and she's enjoying those. And I thought, yeah, just keep on enjoying life. But keep your eye open and watch, because when you watch, when you say to yourself, okay, I'm going to pay attention to what's happening out there, and I'm going to look for where's my next step? What door is going to open? How am I going to think about this, or how should I think about that? Or what do I need to do to get healthy? When you start thinking like that, you're in communication, or you're in relationship, whether you know it or not, with the universe, with source. And source is going to come along and show you the next step. And you'll have one or two chances to take that step. If you don't take it, they may come back if you ask again. And they'll open a door. You'll have an opportunity to look through the door and go, oh, I see. This is what's coming. You'll all of a sudden you'll read something, or you'll hear something where you are suddenly aware, I need to do that in order to get healthy. And so it's a moment by moment, live your life step by step, breath by breath, with your eyes open, looking for what's next. What's next for me? And it will come to you. because that is the nature of reality. And so we have everybody who's so ingrained in the scientific method, which is all about prediction. And what has happened because of that is that we're trying to predict something that can't be predicted, because you can't create until you see what's possible. And that, that has to happen. So you just open to possibilities, ideas. We need people with new ideas, definitely. Typically, that's going to come from kids, because they don't have, all of the brainwashing. They don't have that years and years of needing to have total control over everything, which we have inherited from our government and our education system and our church. What's the church telling you to predict? Predict that you will be good enough to get to heaven. That's their form of prediction. So if you trust that there is something out there, and there is, that is absolutely in love with you, and all you have to do is, even if it's a half-assed response, respond a little bit. Well, show me. Well, tell me. Well, give me an idea. Well, I'll keep my eyes open, or give me a sign. If you want me to do this, give me a sign. And then you get the sign. And then you're like, oh, crap. Now I have to do something. So that's how we need to begin living. And what that does is bring a huge amount of trust back into us, into the middle of our soul.
And we start connecting with the earth again and nature, and it just changes everything about how we make decisions and move forward, and the whole thing.
Yes, if there's anything that we should know at this point, or at least for those who have been paying attention and who are going to hold the space for everybody else. But if there's anything we should know, it's that language creates, and that we are capable of so much more. How many, what would you call, how many videos are out there about people waking up, having these extraordinary experiences that made their hair stand up, because all of a sudden their dead father appeared to them, or their dead husband spoke to them, and they could feel that hug coming from that dead husband, or how many people have been to psychics and intuitives and got a message directly from their kid who died way too early, or whatever. And all of that is to let us know, hey guys, reality is not the way you thought it was. So here we are having to, put our money where our mouth is, so to speak. And people are afraid. They want, I don't know what they want. They want guarantees. They want ironclad predictions, maybe. You don't need those. All you need is a sense of adventure and a little bit of trust. And the universe, you're going to fall in love with the universe, or source, or God, whatever you want to call it. Because that force, that intelligent power, is right there waiting for you. Yeah. So, yeah.
Gosh, you put that so beautifully, Penny. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we are at a point now where we can see that the old system is definitely coming apart, and we can focus there. But it's, what is that story about the salt? Somebody's leaving a burning city and is told,
turn around to a pillar of salt. I think that what has come out from, just the short period of time that the new administration has been affecting change, particularly with the work of Mike Benz. I don't know if you follow Mike Benz. I'm sure that you are aware of him.
Mike,
pardon?
Yeah, okay. I was thinking of somebody else, but yes.
He's the one that has done the deep dive into USAID.
Yeah.
I think that what the reality is that we thought the government was not efficient and maybe a little corrupt. I don't think we had any idea the depth of it. And I think that makes it easier now that we have that information to say, oh, no more. And I also think that there is a portion of the population who's right on the edge of snapping. And what I mean by that is not snapping, losing their minds, but snapping and saying, we're done.
Yeah.
We are so done. I'm not playing that game. Get out of my face. And if you don't, things are not going to go well for you.
I have to say, yeah, you reminded me of something that I saw in the look-see. It was that everything falls apart, and the government that's falling apart was the corporation.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that was a great part because
Yeah.
I don't know that most people realize that there's a difference between the collective in the US, the humans in the US, and the company that was created.
You got it. Yeah. Yeah. Somewhere back in the 1800s, there was a corporation, and they took the name United States of America. And prior to that, the name had been the United States for America. And just by changing that one word, they made it look like they were the same old government, but they were a corporation. And that's really when all the trouble began. And I've talked about the introduction of the corporation before as part of any takeover effort. That's how you get the better of people. That's how you take away their rights and their powers, and you make them dependent, and they pull the rug out from under, and the whole thing collapses, and they all die because everybody has become really dependent on that corporation. So anyways, the thing that was that I saw was that Trump and continuity of government were going to be in action and would hold everything together. And it'd be kind of messy, and we'd all be saying, "Wait, what's happening now? Or what are we supposed to be doing now?" All of that. The United States for America will re-emerge, and there will be a new form of that government, I think. But it will be so much more effective.
Yeah.
So,
I'm continually amazed at the shrewdness of his deal making skills and abilities. I get blindsided all the time. It's like, man, that was brilliant.
Years and years ago, there was a guy named Drake. This was back in 2011 or 12. And he was running around the country, and he was talking about the states were now had sent papers to The Hague, and all the states in the U.S. were now their own nations. And I don't know if we talked about that before, but Drake disappeared. All of a sudden, if we were going to have a 4th of July in maybe 2011 or 12, a 4th of July arrest of all of the corrupt ones. So that's how long I've been following this, actually since the ropes came into my life. But it reached a peak, and 4th of July came and went that year, and nothing happened, nothing. And so it was like, oh no, and we never heard from Drake again, just disappeared. So I thought they got him. They got to him somehow. So, but in the stories that happened before he disappeared, he said that there was a book that was probably 5 inches thick that was a plan to get control away from the corrupt ones. And I don't know if it was him or somebody else, or anyway, this plan was rock solid, according to him. And I never heard anything more about the plan until Q came along and said, follow the plan. We have a plan. And now I look out at everything happening and think, I don't know who's setting this up, but just like you were just saying, some of the moves are brilliant, and they're not anything that we would normally think would be possible or could be done. An example, the other day I saw, Tom Rentz, the lawyer.
Oh, yeah, I love him. He's doing such great work.
I know. So he puts out this post and he says, I'm naturally really suspicious of anything the government does. So he gets some complaint about Musk comes out, and so he goes and he does a little bit of research and discovers that Musk and Trump did not just create the Department of Government Efficiency. Obama created it, and it was
They just renamed it.
yeah, it was called the U.S. Digital Services Agency. And I thought, oh, and it had the same job, to modernize, to make, bring the software up to date, to make the government a little more efficient. And I thought, wow, that really just kind of, shoots down the argument. Who does he think he is starting this extra governmental thing? What can you say what can they say when somebody says, oh, Obama started it, Trump's just using it. So here we are. Yeah.
So going back to the look-see, Penny, we're getting close to wrapping up here.
Yeah.
I think people, there are a lot of people that really want to do good work and be a part of positive change and take on the responsibility of creating a new world. What can you share with us based on what you see? And the look-see was amazing, folks. If you haven't seen it, go to Penny Kelly Official and watch it. It's amazing. Particularly those questions at the end. I'm going to write those down and keep them in my pocket because those are so handy. But you'll have to watch the look-see to find out what they are. What guidance can you share with us for, let's just say, until we meet again next month? Like what are the things that you think that we need to keep an eye out for, to notice, to maybe incorporate as new skills, or to look to improve?
Okay. So I'm on the practical side. I think the thing to be aware of is, let's say that the financial system hits a wall. Okay. Just hold still and watch and see what unfolds. If it's hitting a wall, it's because it has been planned to hit the wall. And I don't know if that's because they're trying to take out the Federal Reserve or trying to get control of the money system, which they don't have right now, or what. But there will be another option or two, and you'll have to decide. So try not to panic. There's a lot of bad news out there about, about your finances, et cetera, et cetera. But just be thinking about, okay, how much do I really know about what's going on behind the scenes of that financial system? So that's one thing. I've already mentioned is we're coming into summer. It's time to maybe learn to grow a tomato or grow a potato, or, plant a grape in your backyard.
You don't have to do anything. Just stick the seed in the ground. Mother Nature will.
Yes. Okay. If you want to do something interesting, learn to bake bread. That is, it's one of the most wonderful and rewarding things you can learn. And there's all kinds of breads out there around the world. French bread.
Can I interject here just really quickly? I was sharing with a girlfriend, if I was looking for a little business, I would start a bread and other item business out of my home. And I would go around to all my neighbors with a little flyer and say, I got a little stand out in front of my house. I've got sourdough bread. I've got rolls. I've got cookies. I've got croissants. You would sell out every day.
We do. We sell out every week at market. Here's another thing. If you don't know if your town has a farmer's market or not, then, find out. If it does have one, then go to it and visit, walk around, look and see what's for sale. Talk to the people selling. We sell at the Kalamazoo Farmers Market, and we're getting ready now to sell right from the farm directly. So
Mhm.
big deal. Lots of talk going on about that. But if you would like to start a small business on the side to make sure you are fed, then learn to grow something, take it to the market. If you don't want to stand there and sell, then make it available to somebody who's already going to the market and say, do you want to sell my carrots for me? I'll give you 20%. That's more than what the grocery store makes. Their margin is 4%. So, make deals, learn how to grow something, start some kind of a healing business, learn herbs, how to make tinctures. All of that is useful. Learn how to cut hair. Everybody has hair, and that hair needs to be cut or conditioned or colored. Learn how to make shampoo. Learn how to make cream rinse or lotion or whatever. Those things they're non-negotiable. There's a guy who runs around our area. He sharpens knives and scissors, and he's busy every day,
Time.
all day. I mean, there's a million things. Be thinking about what would you like to offer in this new world. If it's organizing abilities, then hold a town meeting. Just go to the restaurant and say, I'd like to reserve this room in your restaurant. I'm going to have a meeting here, and then put up a few things in the grocery stores, or if you've got a little flyer newspaper kind of thing that says, here's the grocery stores and here's the news in our county, and put that in there. I'm having a meeting. Is anybody interested in helping organize a new way of doing business? Or go to your township people and go to a meeting or two and find out, what are they doing? How are they managing the water and the roads and the electricity and the tree trimming and all of that? Offer to help somebody in an office somewhere. If you have some skills and you know how to do something, just tell them, I'll come in and work. You don't even have to pay me. And, if they say, no, I have to pay you, then say, okay, fine. But you can offer your skills in all kinds of ways. Take care of children. There's hardly any children to take care of anymore. But take care of children, take care of yards, paint. There are so many things that could be done, incredibly creative, that are needed to build a new world. If you know anything artistic, or you have an artistic skill, or you make beautiful things, or jewelry, or clothing, or whatever it is. My daughter she runs a clinic, dialysis clinic. And on the side, she has all of this equipment by which she makes custom-made baby clothes that are embroidered with the date of birth of the baby and their name and how much they weighed and how long they were. And, things like that. Kitchen towels with your particular interesting design on them. Little things like that. They're not, international corporations. They are essential pieces that contribute to having a working civilization.
Yeah.
And that's what we're needing to recreate, is the civilization.
And the flip side of that is, as much as you can buy for your own household from people who are creating on their own, that's just going to get us there faster.
Yes. Offer to sell people, clean out your closet, clean out your attic or your basement, and I'll sell your goodies for you and I'll give you half of it, or whatever. There's all kinds of, we have more than enough of everything.
We do.
The things that we run out of are food and patience. So, when you run out of food, grow something. When you run out of patience, go take a nap. My gosh. Yeah. We can make it. We can make this whole thing work beautifully and have fun doing it. It'll be interesting to boot. And that's temporary, because if we can keep ourselves afloat during this transition, which will probably be 2 or 3 years, a waking up of any kind of serious consciousness, lasts a minimum of 1.5 years to 3. So we're waking up right now, and that's really, we're going to have to. There'll be tears, a lot of tears. Wake up. Let yourself cry. Let yourself love, and just keep moving forward.
Yeah. Wonderful. Penny, this has been a fabulous conversation. Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah, we're starting now. We're getting in the boat. We're starting to row down the river. The rapids are ahead. Hang on.
Hang on. And as much as you can take responsibility for many areas of your life, it's just going to go better for you, for your family, for everyone.
Yeah. Oh my. Yeah, it will. And you will discover, as you get healthier and do a little more work that has meaning to you, that there's a cohesiveness that begins to develop between and among you and your neighbors and your friends and family.
And a sense of community that feels really good.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, chin up, you guys.
Yeah. Go out there and be fabulous.
There you go.
Thank you, Penny. This has been wonderful. Any closing thoughts? Or those were pretty brilliant ones right there.
I think the thing that I would say is right now we're in kind of a quiet moment for the next 4 to 6 weeks. It gets a little more hairy after that. So enjoy this little interim period.
Okay.
It's for us to relax and, go dancing.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds good. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we'll say goodbye to everybody.
Okay. Thanks everyone for joining us. This was so helpful, Penny, and so uplifting, and I appreciate it. Everyone go out and take a little bit more responsibility for your life than you did yesterday. And just, add a little bit more every day. Become more a part of your community, build some connections, and let's see what we can create.
There you go. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
All righty.